The NBA is a league that moves fast. Quick decision making, quick athletes, and for many of the league's superstars, a quick rise to fame. But what if I told you there was a player who, standing at only 5'9", flew under the radar his entire college career, was selected with the last pick in his entire draft class, and would one day become the face of one of the NBA's most historic franchises and a staple of one of the United States' biggest markets? None of this came quick. This is the story of Isiah Thomas and how he took over the NBA with the slow grind. Isiah Thomas was born February 7th, 1989 to his parents James and Tina. As some fans may already know, Isiah's father James is a diehard Lakers fan, and after losing a bet, he was forced to name his son Isiah, a reference of course to one of the best point guards in NBA history and Pistons legend, Isiah Thomas. Now let me say something here. The average height for a man in the United States is 5'9". So looking at Isiah Thomas next to your average guy doesn't change much. But through IT's entire life, where his goal has always been to make it to the NBA, which is a league with an average height of 6'6", and that's only going up, it was always going to be an uphill battle for the vertically challenged point guard from Washington if he wanted to reach his ultimate goals. Speaking of Washington, this is where Isiah Thomas would be born and raised and play almost his entire young career of hoops. Going into his senior year, he was a notable high school athlete, but for his senior season, he had to get his grades up in the hopes of cracking a college roster. So he traveled east, where he would play his senior year of high school at South Kent in Connecticut. At South Kent, he proved everything he had to. He got his grades up, and he earned a 3-star rating, and was the 76th ranked player in the country by ESPN. The college decision made too much sense for IT, as he would return home to play for the Huskies at UW. For the Huskies, Isiah Thomas was a surge of energy. His freshman year averaging 15 points per game and earning all Pac-10 honors, before going back for his sophomore season where he was even better, highlighted by a game winner against Arizona in the Pac-10 championship game. This is truly where the slow grind story began. But first, a word from SeatGeek. March Madness is in full swing, and with some of the upsets we've already seen, I don't blame you for wanting to catch a game live. If you use code NEXTMANUP on your SeatGeek purchase, you'll receive $20 off. That's right, big game, big show, any event where you need some tickets ASAP, use code NEXTMANUP to support the channel and save yourself a little bit of money. Thank you SeatGeek, but for now, we still gotta talk about Isiah's slow grind to success. If you know anything about Isiah Thomas, if you have Twitter, or even if you just have an affinity to motivational creators in the sports world, you've probably heard of the slow grind. It's tough to narrow down a single definition of what the slow grind means, but that doesn't stop Isiah Thomas from building his whole brand and honestly his entire identity around those two words. Isiah Thomas practices what he preaches, and what he preaches is consistency and positivity. So when Isiah Thomas was selected with the last pick in the 2011 NBA draft by the Sacramento Kings, he took it as a sign not that he had failed, but that he only had to go harder. And in true IT fashion, Thomas made a name for himself immediately, and honestly the Kings struggled to take IT off the court. Despite being the last pick in the 2011 draft, Isiah earned a big-time role with the Kings and found himself on the NBA's All-Rookie second team and 7th in voting for Rookie of the Year in only his first season of NBA action. Isiah Thomas was not just some rookie sensation. In his third season in Sacramento, Isiah Thomas was a 20-point-per-game scorer and a member of a big three centered around DeMarcus Cousins and Rudy Gay. This trio had some of the best offense we had ever seen in the early 2010s, but didn't have the record to show for their scoring success, so outside of Kings fans, it may have been seen as a disappointment. But don't get me wrong, in IT's time in Sacramento, he did nothing but exceed his expectations. During his time with the Kings, he also became a fan favorite along the way. Maybe it has something to do with watching an emerging star finesse his way against defenders that seem to be almost twice the size of him, or maybe it was just the genuine care for his teammates, fans, and the city of Sacramento. But regardless, Kings fans were sad to see IT go when he was traded to the Phoenix Suns in July of 2014. Isaiah's run with the Suns was short-lived. He struggled with injuries in his lone season with Phoenix, but was still scoring around 16 a game coming off their bench. It wasn't all bad. For IT, this is the point in his career and life as we know it when things would get flipped on their head and change forever. Isaiah would be traded to the Boston Celtics that same season in exchange for Marcus Thornton and a first-round pick, and the city of Boston would buy into the hype and put Thomas's abilities on full display. IT would come off the bench his first half season in Boston, coming only a couple votes short of the Sixth Man of the Year award, but he would earn a full-time starting role the following season in 2015-2016, where he would go absolutely nuclear. IT averaged 22-6 throughout the regular season, and for the first time in his career was named an NBA All-Star. The undersized, nearly undrafted point guard became the first Mr. Irrelevant to ever make an NBA All-Star game. Not only were Celtics fans growing on the prospect of Isaiah Thomas being the face of their team, the city of Boston rallied around the West Coast native arguably more than anyone they ever had not named Brady. As Celtics blog put it, it was love from first sight. The Celtics and the city of Boston have been blessed with incredible athletes across their decades of excellence. Larry Bird, Bobby Orr, Bill Russell, even currently with stars such as Jason Tatum and Rafael Devers being some of the best young talent in their respective sports, Isaiah Thomas was just different. Isaiah didn't come to Boston as a known superstar talent. He wasn't even someone that Celtics fans had to be convinced into liking or had shoved in their face. Isaiah Thomas was a genuine guy, one of the hardest workers the game had ever seen, and was more than willing to show love to the city of Boston at any occasion. The Celtics had left their peak that they had in 2008, and despite the other three major sports teams in New England being some of the best in the world during this time, it was the first time in a very long time that the Celtics had felt like the little brother in the city of Boston. Isaiah Thomas not only came out of nowhere, but he came to the Celtics at the perfect time. In IT's first All-Star season, the Celtics would make a playoff run where Thomas would continue to show his clutch ways, earning a classic nickname, King in the Fourth Quarter, a name that may not have been directly inspired, but definitely catapulted the love for one of the best basketball creators in the world, KOT4Q, also known as Kenny Beecham. So, shout out to Kenny, of course, but 2017 is the year where Isaiah Thomas would hit his prime. Isaiah Thomas made it back to All-Star Weekend as an All-Star, but just at a completely different level. IT averaged 33 points that January, the highest monthly average in Celtics history. He scored 20 points in 43 consecutive games, the longest streak in Celtics history, and he led the Celtics to the first seed in the Eastern Conference when the East was flooded with the LeBron James-led Cavaliers and incredibly competitive teams over in Toronto and Washington, D.C. Isaiah Thomas had successfully climbed every hurdle thrown in front of him so far, but he would then be met with one that nobody can or ever should have to tackle alone. On April 15th, 2017, a day before the first round of the 2017 NBA playoffs began, Isaiah Thomas's sister China would pass away in a fatal car accident. I don't need to explain the severity of this situation. It speaks for itself. And while many of us would be out of commission for the foreseeable future if met with such tragic information, Isaiah Thomas battled through it all, with support from his teammates, his coaches, and a city of known problem starters and not very nice people on his side. Isaiah Thomas played the next day, in Game 1 of the Eastern Conference first round, where he would put up 33 points, and eventually lead the Celtics to win the series after going down 0-2. After a complete performance of some of the most determination and grit we have ever seen from an athlete in all of sports history, Isaiah Thomas still wasn't done. the Celtics would match up with a Wizards team that was known to give them problems in round 2 of that playoff run, and on his back would lead the Celtics to a series win in 7 games, including a 53-point performance on the day of his late sister's birthday. Wow. Boston didn't make Isaiah Thomas. Isaiah Thomas made himself a part of the city's long history with his determination and his love for the game. Unfortunately for IT, things would go downhill from here. In Game 2 of the Eastern Conference Finals against the Cavaliers, Isaiah Thomas would go down with injury as the Celtics would eventually lose that series in 5 games. And despite finishing in the top 5 for MVP voting, the Celtics would look to move Isaiah Thomas that offseason. In a move that turned the city of Boston against their basketball team, the Celtics would ship out Isaiah Thomas, Jay Crowder, and Ante Zizic to their rivals in Cleveland for the controversial superstar Kyrie Irving. That trade could be its own video just by itself, but to keep things incredibly short, this move just didn't work out for either side. Kyrie would be a 1-year rental in Boston, and Isaiah Thomas's injury would hold him back from continuing his stretch of dominance. Isaiah was never the same and was never able to find his footing for the Cleveland Cavaliers. After playing on many different teams in the short term, including the Lakers, the Nuggets, the Wizards, Pelicans, Mavericks, Hornets, it seemed like Isaiah Thomas's story was finished in 2022 when he was no longer able to find a place on a professional team. Instead of tapping out like most players would, Isaiah Thomas instead did the most Isaiah Thomas move ever, and instead of retiring, worked on his craft, trusted the slow grind, and vouched for himself everywhere that he could on social media. Isaiah's persistence was so strong, it even became a meme that whenever a star player would miss time with injury or face a suspension, that Isaiah Thomas would almost immediately preach that he was ready to help. And despite many clowning IT for these posts that he would put up quite often, it eventually all worked out. Not long ago, in the 2024 NBA season, Isaiah Thomas signed a deal to join the Salt Lake City Stars of the NBA G League, and even at 34 years old, was simply miles above his competition. And guys, here we are in the modern day, where earlier this week, Isaiah Thomas appeared in his first NBA game since 2022. Where he logged 2 minutes for the Phoenix Suns and picked up an assist in his brief appearance. While many in this position would look back at their career with a grain of salt, after falling from a superstar talent to an NBA bench warmer in the blink of an eye, Isaiah Thomas remains a fan favorite because he does exactly the opposite and uses his story to inspire the next generation of counted out hoopers. So now, nearly a decade removed from the times that Isaiah Thomas was one of the most explosive players in basketball, Celtics fans and all NBA fans really look at Thomas as a story of how hard work and a will to be the best at your craft can bring you to the pinnacle of success, no matter which challenges you face in life. And now, if you want to know how I feel about IT's return to the NBA, just know that I'm a believer in Isaiah Thomas for as long as he believes in himself, and over here at Next Man Up, we're all the way bought in on the slow grind. This was Next Man Up. Leave a like if you liked, and subscribe if you want to see more. We'll see you all in the next one. Peace out.